Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Double Down, the live online news and affairs programme that puts people first. It's Thursday, the 24th of June 2021. We're broadcasting live from Dublin, Dundalk, and Longford, and we are your hosts, Finbar Markey and Anna Kavanagh. Thanks for joining us this evening, folks. We're back after a 2 week hiatus or a break. Although, to be honest with you, we were catching up on more paperwork and preparing for the next round of shows, so there wasn't much resting involved. But it's worth it to bring authentic news to you, our viewers. On tonight's show, as usual, we're going to be very busy. Anna is speaking with Donegal Fisherman and regular guest on the show, Rory Murray, about yesterday's show of force by the Irish fishing industry, who sailed into Dublin port to protest their treatment by government and the EU. I'll be talking tonight with Willie Hughes and Frank Allen about their new film, a romantic musical based around the struggle for independence in Catalonia. Anna Kavanagh will also be bringing you her news and views at the end of the show. But first, the news that you won't see on TV. In Irish news first, and as you've just heard, the Irish fishing fleet yesterday united in a show of force as up to 60 large fishing vessels sailed up the River Liffey into Dublin City and docked across from the current seat of government at the National Convention Centre. Despite wet weather, up to 2,000 fishermen, their family and supporters marched to the convention centre to hear powerful speeches calling for a fairer quota for the Irish fishing industry. There appears to have been all-round agreement that any further actions would be increasingly militant and would possibly involve strategic disruptions of port activities. In what can only elicit weary sighs from a weary Irish population, the Taoiseach, the Irish Prime Minister, has said that government is discussing policies that would encourage downsizing of homes by older people and the provision of grants to refurbish dilapidated properties. These discussions are aimed at addressing the long-standing housing crisis in Ireland. Sadly, these very ideas were discussed by the previous two governments also, and limited grants and incentives were put in place, but to no avail. At a time when the basics such as housing for many people is a pipe dream, the rehashing of old ideas and failed ideas indicates that the ruling coalition has no real plan for housing other than to leave it in the hands of private investment funds. In a shocking new report published this week in collaboration between Focus Ireland and the School of Social Work and Social Policy in Trinity College Dublin, it's been revealed that a jaw-dropping 38,000 individual adults have been homeless at some time since 2014. The report also found that over €1 billion was spent on services for households experiencing homelessness since 2014. The report also highlights increases in homelessness amongst single people and comes on foot of data indicating that more people have died this year whilst homeless than in any other 6-month period since records began. There are alarming predictions that 2021 will see over 100 people die whilst accessing homeless services this year. In what's being seen as a controversial move, Sinn Féin TDs left the Dáil en masse before a vote to extend laws underpinning the special criminal courts and non-jury trials. Sinn Féin's policy historically has been to object to non-jury trials and the special powers granted to such courts to hear non-public evidence and to rely on hearsay. It is notable that 7 TDs did vote against extending the laws and the special courts, including Mick Barry from Cork and Thomas Pringle from Donegal. 90 voted in favour of the extension. And finally, in Irish news, the solicitor for the families of the Stardust victims, Dara Mackin, has called for the inquest to open in October and not September as has been planned. Mr Mackin has said that after consulting with the families, including the Keegan and McHugh family, that an extra 4 weeks would provide the time necessary to ensure that all is in order and ready for an inquest of such magnitude. The Stardust nightclub fire killed 48 young people and injured hundreds more. Families have claimed a cover-up and no proper inquest has ever been held into the cause of the deaths of all those young people. In EU news, and the 9 Catalan elected representatives imprisoned for their role in facilitating a vote in 2017 on independence have been freed from their prison cells on Wednesday after the Spanish government granted them pardons. Former Catalonia Vice President Oriol Junqueras, 5 Catalan ministers, the former regional parliamentary speaker and 2 pro-independence activists walked free shortly after noon yesterday. Globally, the imprisonment of the elected representatives has been seen as a stain on the image of the EU. and the pardon comes soon after elections that saw a majority voting in favour of pro-independence candidates. Speaking in the Catalan tongue, the freed politicians vowed they would continue their campaign for independence from Spain. At the UN, a motion calling for the lifting of the US embargoes on Cuba was passed by an enormous 184 countries voting to lift the embargoes and 2 countries voting against. US trade and economic embargoes have meant the blockading of Cuban ports and airspace for over 60 years. Although Cuba manages to provide sustenance to its population, quality of life could be much improved by a lifting of the US military blockade. Predictably, the United States and Israel were the only 2 states to vote against lifting the blockade. And finally, in international news, in a further provocation, Britain has sent a warship, the HMS Defender, into Russian territorial waters off Crimea. The Russian Navy and the Air Force intervened, with a Russian ship coming close to seek the HMS Defender to change course, and the Russian vessels fired warning shots. At least 20 Russian jets followed the British destroyer overhead. The move by the British government is part of ongoing provocation strategies against Russia and may be a probing exercise for future military action. And we have some video of that British warship going into Russian waters and the response from the Russian military and Navy and Coast Guard. And remember, this is from the BBC, so it's going to be very biased towards the British side of things. But ultimately, it was in Russian waters, and although they are merchant sea lanes, it was a military ship that was sent in there, clearly trying to provoke a Russian response. If you could play that for us, please, Stephen.
As we get close to Crimea, the tension rises. HMS Defender is going to sail within what Russia now claims is its territorial waters, but following a legally recognised shipping lane.
Do you say there's a flashpoint potentially here in terms of how the Russians will behave?
There's a contentious point. Their posture will likely be more belligerent because of our proximity to what they recognise as their waters.
I mean, they will view you as belligerent going so close to Crimea, won't they?
They might take that view.
As HMS Defender comes within 12 miles of the coast, the Russian Coast Guard make a dangerous move.
This Russian Coast Guard vessel has come up right close to this British warship and is trying now to force it to change course.
Nothing on the bridge, absolute noise on the bridge.
If you cross the border line, I'll be fire. If you don't change the course, I'll be fire. Do you read me? Over.
The crew don protective clothing in case that threat's followed through. Shots are fired, but they're well out of range.
Aircraft visual, green 150, tracking right, altitude low.
Throughout the transit, HMS Defender detects at least 20 Russian military aircraft nearby, some far too close for comfort. The Russian Defense Ministry released their own footage of their jets flying overhead, including imagery of what appears to be the British destroyer in their sights. Remember, this is not just about military brinkmanship, it's also about who can win the information war.
I'd love to know how the British would respond if Russian warships sailed up the Thames River. The language that was being used in that report describing the Russian response as dangerous and as threatening, I think is just so hypocritical. It's unbelievable. That's all of the news that you won't see on TV this week, folks. We're going to pass you over to Anna Kavanagh now, who's going to have a quick chat with Rory Murray about yesterday's Irish fishing industry demonstration in Dublin.
We're joined now by Rory Murray, a Killybegs-based fisherman who is a regular guest here on Double Down, and he's going to chat to me about yesterday's demonstration by fishermen in Dublin. You're very welcome to Double Down, Rory.
Cheers, Anna. Thanks again for having me.
Okay, so people who haven't been watching the news or are not aware of what actually happened yesterday, can you fill us in briefly on what happened yesterday?
Yeah, well, briefly, yesterday was the industry pulling together, everybody putting their shoulder to the wheel, and we had it's all about our quotas after the TAC agreement or the Brexit deal on the 24th of December last year. Basically, in a nutshell, we were thrown under the bus so the rest could walk away rubbing their hands. We paid the most out of any member state after Europe telling us for 4 years of negotiations that each member state was going to pay even burden, but we paid the most, and this is a result of incompetence from our government, not caring, not listening. After us for 4 years telling them to keep their eye on the ball, and they took their eye off the ball. Well, they just didn't really care in the end up, and there was a protest. Well, it was a show and tell more than anything. But it was on in Cork about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and this was the second one of that. And we took it to Dublin now, and between 60 and 70 boats up the Liffey. It's an unreal sight, and to see people from all corners of Ireland pulling together, and some great speeches there yesterday, and the young children's that are involved, families that are involved in the fishing industry, they delivered a letter of our demands to Micheál Martin. So they did. So it was basically just yesterday was a result of our government not caring about us. So we've had enough, and that's what yesterday was about, and it was a great day all around.
Okay, and there were some very, very powerful speeches from leaders in the fishing industry, and I suppose two issues that were raised that really struck home to me. The first one is the issue of rockall and the fact that Irish fishermen have been prevented from fishing the waters of rockall. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, well, rockall is just, I suppose, it kind of speaks for itself. It's a rock. It's about 240 or 50 miles northwest of Donegal here, and nobody really has any claim to it. Irish boats have fished there for decades, along with Scotchmen side by side, and I think it was around 2015 or 2016. Leo Varadkar was Taoiseach, and he basically signed it away. He didn't even know what he was signing. He admitted he didn't know what he's signing. So when the Brexit deal came through, the Irish boats had no access to inside 12-mile limit of rockall, and that's where 60-70% of the fish is. Like Adrian McLennan, owner of the Northern Celt, spoke yesterday and spoke well that 30 or 40% of his national income comes inside this 12-mile limit of the rock, and for Leo Varadkar to go and sign it off and admit that he didn't know what he was signing, and then that gave it was the Scottish government then that hounded Adrian McLennan or Hugh McLennan out of inside the 12-mile days after the Brexit deal was done, and it's still to this day it's still they say they're working on it, but you just wondering are they doing anything at all. Like, so Irish boats have no access to inside the 12-mile limit at rockall still. So will it change? I don't know. Hopefully it will. But for boats like Northern Celt and boats in Greencastle and Killybegs and all along the west coast, it's a massive blow to them. And like there was another thing too, that there's a lot of squid caught at the rock. It's annually worth in the region of 4 to 5 million for the boats here and Scotland, and that's all gone. Like for the Irish boats, the Scottish boats can fish away all they want now. So it's a sore subject. It's never should have happened, and it's all in the head of Leo Varadkar signing away something that he didn't even know what he was signing.
Okay, so that's one issue, and it involves the UK. And I suppose the second battle that you're fighting is what's happening at EU level. So new regulations have come in now regarding the weighing of fish. That's very disadvantageous for fishermen. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, well, Ireland has a special discrepancy, or as a special legislation where we are allowed to transport fish from point of landing, that's i.e. pier, like up to the factory where it's weighed on the factory. And this has been this has been in since I can remember, since I started fishing over 20 years ago. But our incompetent SFPA, who I forgot to say the last day when I was chatting to Finbar in the last, there was an audit done in the SFPA, and incompetent, not fit for purpose was the result of this audit. So of the SFPA. So they basically, in a nutshell, don't want to do their job. They don't want to go to a coal factory. They don't want to stand up here. They don't want to do basically anything. And they know rightly that if they don't do their job, that this delegation of us landing fish in the factory is going to be revoked from us. So we have to weigh all the fish in the pier now to the elements. Demersal, that's your cod, ling, haddock, hake. You know, if a whitefish boat comes in with 300 or 400 boxes, he's to de-ice them and put them in a new box and weigh them on the pier. And when they're open to the elements, and this time of year, it could be 20, 25 degrees in the pier, and you've seagulls overhead. And like, you know, the SFP be crying about, you know, fish being in chilled condition, permanent great condition, and like the fish are going to be destroyed if this keeps going like the way it is. And they're trying to get a new control plan in place as quick as possible, but it's like, I don't know, they're just a shambles, the whole thing. Like it's ridiculous. There's going to be a lot of money lost, a lot of jobs lost. And you know, another side, Anna, who is like, would you eat fish that was sitting on a pier and not chilled for, you know, sitting on a pier? They actually done studies where they tested the fish to see how much the flesh and the meat of the fish goes up, and it went up to 6.5 degrees in about 20 minutes in this time of year. Like, so the fish is nearly rotten to the pier. Like, so they're going around crying for quality fish and all this here, and then it's them making us do this. Like, so, you know, it's, I don't know.
It's crazy, and it seems that decisions are being made regarding fishing and what should happen by individuals that are so far removed they have not a clue what's happening. Now, you mentioned there that a letter was handed in. Can you just briefly outline the demands that you're seeking that were contained in that letter?
Yeah, well, I actually read it the last day. It's basically, I suppose, the first thing we're looking for is, you know, the EU be crying on about level playing fields and everything else, and it's like, it's the playing field's not level. Like, we catch 15% of the fish in our own waters, and the other 85% is caught by the rest of the EU. Like, that's not level. That's criminal. There's a few legislations brought in to stop this, but our government won't chase them down. I think Uniclass is one of them, where whoever owns the natural resource should have the greatest chunk of the quota for it. Whoever's closest to the natural resource should have the greatest chunk to it. Well, we tick both of them boxes, but since we're part of the EU, that Uniclass, the EU say that Uniclass isn't, it's void because we're part of the EU. But you know, if our government went looking, they could change that. That's one thing, is level playing field. Number two is the common fishery policy is pretty much the backbones of the quota set out between all EU member states since it's here since we joined the EEC 40, 50 years ago, and it basically looks after quotas for each member state. That has been reviewed next year, and we're looking for it to be, well, reviewed and get it. We should get our chunk of quota there. And like the government, we've said this to the government already, and they'll say, well, in order for Ireland to get quota, it has to come off somebody else. We don't care. We don't care where it comes from. We don't care if it comes from Spain, France, Danes. We're done. We don't care. Like, they don't care about us, so why should we care about them? So that was another thing that we wanted done. Massive revamp, reset in the SFPA in the Department of Marine. Like two rotten, disgusting organisations that just don't care about the livelihoods that they're destroying. So it's basically them things. There's a few other things too. I can't remember off my head now, but they're the main ones. Like.
Okay, so just to finish up now, if it's a thing that the government don't meet these demands and they give fishermen the runaround, and this purely is just your opinion. In your opinion, what do you think is going to happen in the months ahead?
Well, if my opinion anyway, like it's like this. I would rather lie in jail than be lying on the street at this stage. I would head straight to a port and just block it. They can do what they want. They're on about arrest, and like if we had with all the boats there yesterday, like, are they going to go around arresting 70 or 80 boats? Like, realistically, you split them up between 3 different. You could block Rosslare, Dublin, Cork. If you block Cork for between 7 to 10 days, the country's going to start starving fuel. Like this is where we're heading now. If nothing's done, this is the sad reality. And the fishermen don't care at the stage because they're going to be out of a job anyway. You know, that's like a lot of them are going to be out of a job. And like I was just reading there on the RT archives, this like the harbours were blocked before in Dublin for 2 days, 1982, over a dispute about a herring fishery, I think, and the Navy had to come in and disperse the boats. But it's like the ports have been blocked before. But I honestly think this, unless the government changes their tune drastically, and that's wishful thinking, you know. They should really, after yesterday. I thought yesterday was a great show. There was Michael Collins' speech, which shows his heart's in the right place. Patrick McLaughlin was excellent, and Father John Joe Duffy from Burton Port was just unbelievable. Like, and you could tell that when they're speaking from their heart. Like, and that's what we need in the Dáil. That's boys like that there that speak from the heart, not these muppets like. The Taoiseach going around in circles, and yeah, so that's that's where we're at that anyway. We've gone about it the right way. We've given them 2 shots across the bow. We're doing everything the right way. And listen, we don't want to go down. We don't want to go down and block ports and put misery on anybody else. That's not what we want to do. We just want to put misery and pressure on the government. That's our only thing. Like, we don't want normal families or anything else to be out of fuel or anything else. But that it's getting to crunch time now, and so hopefully they will listen. So that's where we're at that anyway. But it's heading towards that.
Okay, so as the saying goes, we need to watch this space, and I know that we're going to have yourself and Cormac Burke from the Seafood Alliance come and join us in a few weeks' time here on Double Down to give us an update on what is actually happening. So you're sending out a very, very clear warning to the government tonight that if they don't act immediately to meet the demands of fishermen, basically what you're saying is that you're going to blockade the ports.
Yes, so, that's it. The ball's in their court, Anna. That's the long and short of it. But it's up to them to get put on their big boy pants and go back to Europe. And then and they can leave their cap at home this time and go back and say, right, we're in a bit of a mess here now. So you can give us the quota and save a lot of jobs in coastal communities. You know, so that's where our industry's in life support at the minute, and we're really fighting. So that's where we're. Hopefully we'll see. Time will tell.
Time will tell. So on that note, we'll finish, and I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight on Double Down, and we look forward to catching up with yourself and Cormac in a few weeks' time.
Thanks very much, Anna. Thanks for having me.
Back over now to you, Finbar.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you, Rory. I did a live stream from the demonstration in Dublin yesterday, and yeah, it was a really powerful day. to see all those boats lined up. I don't think the photographs do it justice. I think you have to really be there and to see all those large trawlers. And as I say, that was only a fraction of the Irish fishing fleet. In terms of the speeches that were made, I did notice that the Irish rural independents seem to be adept at making loud and passionate speeches. I think at this stage, any TDs that are supporting the fishermen should be literally strapping themselves to the mast, as it were, in Dáil Éireann. They should be refusing to allow other business to proceed, businesses involving banks and vulture funds or anything like that, until such time as the fishermen get a commitment, more than a commitment, action is taken that turns completely around the attitude that the Irish negotiators have had with the EU so far, because it's gone beyond the beyond. Unless something radical really happens here, unless there's a really militant position taken, in my mind, as far as Europe and the Irish negotiators are concerned, it's a done deal. So something radical has to happen. I encourage those TDs to turn their passions into actions in Dáil Éireann and disrupt the business of the Dáil if necessary. I think would be one of the strategies that needs to be engaged. Anyway, that's just my opinion. We have often featured the Catalan Independence movement on this programme. We've had Elisa Paluzzi, who was the vice president of the Catalan Assembly and a professor herself in economics, I think it was, in Barcelona University. We also are planning to have next week, hopefully, Professor Josep Costas in relation to the Catalan movement as well. Josep was the vice president of Catalonia a number of years ago and is still very much involved in the campaign itself. We have not considered the Catalan movement as the theme or the centre of a musical film, but it is. But two Irish guys have gone and they're nearly finished making a musical film about the Catalan independence movement and about an Irish band that get caught up in that movement. So Willie Hughes and Frank Allen are the filmmakers. Are you there, guys? Can you unmute yourself if you're muted there? Guys, can you hear me? Okay, we just lost Frank and Willie there for some reason. We're going to try to get them back. But just to give you an idea of what the film is about, first of all, it's about an Irish band. There's a romance involved. They're travelling around Europe and they just happened to come into Catalonia at the time of the referendum when the Spanish authorities came down in a very paramilitary fashion, if you want to call it that, came down on the Catalan independence movement after a vote had been taken. So the lads have come up with the idea of making a film around this, and they've got to the extent where the film is being made and they've recorded some songs and things like that. And one of the theme or the main songs is an amazing song. I wonder, Stephen, could you play that a clip of that song for us now? I know you're also trying to get the lads on board there. Okay, Willie and Frank, do we have you there?
We're here, Finberg.
We lost you there for a few minutes, but thank God we have you back.
Technology. Yeah.
I gave a bit of an introduction, an overview of the film, which is called The Road to Barcelona. But if you want to give a descriptor yourself, lads, before we get into talking about how you met and how the film came about, could you give us a little bit of a descriptor of the film and explain to us what you mean by it's a musical romance?
Okay, Finberg, thank you. The film actually emanated from the idea of a new music group being formed in Dublin, and the lead singer at the very opening gig, she meets Sergi, who is from Barcelona. So there's an immediate love story starting, but of course this is only a few months before the referendum for independence in Catalonia, and of course Sergi, being a student leader, is heavily involved in the referendum, and he's arrested. And as the group go on a tour of Europe, Sinead, the main character, is separated from him, and then we see all of the images on the TV of the oppression and the beating up of the people who had sought the referendum. So it's a love story based on a musical group, but also very much investigating Catalonia and its fight for self-determination.
Okay, Willie, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the ultimate reason for the whole film is to highlight to internationalize the cause of Catalonia, because as we all know, it's just unbelievable what's going on there. But the idea, I'm the music guy, Frank wrote the script. It's not a musical, it's a music film, which is really a new genre. Think of Bohemian Rhapsody, where you have a band embedded in the film and the performances are given during the film, where a musical is more like the postman is likely to sing or something and dance down the street.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
The idea is, though, the cinema is surround sound at a technology that is new, so you'll never hear bands or music a better quality, and that's the essence of it.
Yeah, I have been in my own mind comparing it to Les Mis, and I think the reason that I'm doing that is the main theme song. I just can't. What is the name of the main theme song again, Willie? It's not on the top of my.
Our Dream Come True.
Our Dream Come True. I listened to it yesterday and the day before, and I have to say it's spine-tingling. It makes your hair stand up. And we're going to just play the first 50 seconds of the first section of verse of it now, if you don't mind, before we get into our chat more. Stephen, could you play that? What is the name of the singer here, Willie?
Cheryl Ann Cassidy.
Cheryl Ann Cassidy, and just an amazing voice. But Stephen, if you could play that first, please.
Can anyone tell? Can the crystal ball see our beautiful dream? Flying on wings, we must hold on to hope and weather every storm. If this we can do, our dream may soon come true.
And she then moves into a wonderful crescendo in the next section of the song. But I just thought it was so professional. It just reminds me of Les Mis or something that's coming out of the United States now from Disney, in one of those high production, high investment musicals that come out of Disney. How did you guys get together, and how did you start talking about Catalonia? How did this come up?
Okay, well, myself and Willie were working as teachers in the Dublin prison system, actually up in Arbor Hill prison for a number of years. And Willie's background being in music and my own in playwriting, we linked on a few projects. And then in recent years, I developed a big interest in Catalonia. I had known a lot of the people involved in the international brigades, and of course, way back in 1986, I met at the 50th anniversary. I met some of the international brigade members. They're all dead now, of course, but there was this connection between Ireland and Catalonia that sparked my interest. And of course, with the referendum and the images that we were seeing on TV over the last 4 years, it really heightened our interest. And we said, well, this is an ideal opportunity to match the music that Willie has written with a narrative that connects Ireland with Barcelona.
Okay, and Willie, you were talking to me yesterday and earlier this morning about some of the similarities historically, maybe between Ireland and Catalonia. Do you want to elaborate on that, or?
Well, yeah, I think Frank would be better to give you the historic side of it. But for me, it's the idea, this is what we were talking about this morning, that the Irish are essentially caring people. And you were saying, based on the Celtic tradition, where it was all about caring, they were very caring. And you were saying men and women were treated equally. So it was a very beautiful society. And the Catalans are very much that. When we talked to them first, I was really impressed, and I'm all about the heart, and so is Frank, about how real they were from the heart, and how dedicated they were to non-violence. And again, that's a parallel with the Irish Celtic background, this sense of achieving your goals or fulfilling your dreams, but doing it gently and and caring for your fellow traveller in life.
Because the response that the speaking to Eliza Paluzzi in detail in an interview a few months ago, she almost was not flippant, but off the cuff about the fact that they weren't being shot like Franco shot them, but they were being jailed and they were being baton charged and have been baton charged and jailed. Released, some of the politicians released only yesterday, thank goodness. But it's serious stuff, isn't it? It's not. You know, it is in the centre of a musical here, but it's very serious stuff.
When we were saying about parallels with Ireland, the ones that really jumped out at me were the 1918 general election in Ireland, which was, of course, following on from the Easter Rising. And when those elections took place, many of the candidates, of course, in that Sinn Féin rise to power were still in prison. And their idea, of course, with the results, the same as the results that we had here then, was that we would form our own parliament. But, of course, Spain, as Britain did, object to that, but objected in a very, very violent method. I mean, there were people dragged out of the polling booths, old ladies who went there to express their right to seek independence for their own nation, for their own culture. And the scenes were horrific. And we really feel that through the medium of film, that we can educate the rest of Europe as to what is actually going on in Catalonia, and to seek EU support, because the EU have not been great towards the Catalans, let's be honest.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of embarrassment and shame has resulted in 9 of the Catalan Independence leaders and referendum facilitators being released today. Most of them were in prison for up to the last 4 years for facilitating a plebiscite, a vote. They were in jail for the last 4 years. It's amazing stuff. In terms of the film itself, how advanced are you guys? And have you got all of your cast? What's happening there?
In relation to the actual production itself, we met with Media Desk in Ireland, and they advocated that we should get a Catalan co-producer. So in February of 20, just before COVID broke out, we had a meeting with Media Pro, who were a very big film producer in Barcelona. And we also had meetings with the political groups ANC and Omnium. And the ANC, for instance, are organising for us to make a presentation to their chamber there, because an awful lot of the big successful companies in Barcelona are also pro-independence. So it will be a co-production where there will be equal finance coming from Catalonia and from Ireland. We hope that it will start to shoot in the spring to early summer of 2022, with a budget of about 8 to 10 million euro.
It's very interesting. The big day, the national day in Catalonia is 9/11, believe it or not.
Right, okay.
La Diada, which is their Independence Day. It marks a huge celebration. But the final chorus in the anthem in the film is called "We Believe Catalonia Can Be Free." And it's a big sing-along anthem.
I can imagine it. Yeah, I want to hear it right now, but go on.
It's in my head. I mean, listen to it. But the ANC have said that they will organise 250,000 people to turn out for that shoot. It's incredible.
And the ANC is the National Assembly of Catalonia. Yeah.
But that's the kind of forces they can, bring to this whole thing. And we're very integrated with the whole Catalan scene. We've been over and back, and we get on really well with them. They love what we're doing. So it's all very positive. It's all, as you were saying earlier on, Finbar, which I loved, was the idea that this is new. It's happening now. The French Revolution happened that long ago. Young people may be listening to this who feel energized and have principles, may want to get involved. And that's
they want to hop on an aeroplane and go over to Barcelona after hearing this musical. This film.
Music, film.
Yeah. But one thing, Finbar, that ironically that COVID has done, and I'm sure you observed it in Britain particularly and in America, a re-examination of colonialism and what it has done to peoples who suffer at the hands of a colony, with the tearing down of statues and slavery and so on. So that we really feel that the film is directed towards young people, and that I think if young people across Europe realise that a country has a right to self-determination, it has a right to exhibit its own culture and not to be under what was for many years a fascist regime, as you know, in the era of Franco.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as well, as Willie was making the point about a conversation we had earlier, that it's not a case like if you take Les Miserables, for instance, it's looking back at a historical event. It is a recording of sorts, certain to a certain degree fictitious, of historical events. This is right now. This is something that's happening. So the musical film itself is a part of the independence process, is it not? Because it's one of the bridges to the English-speaking world about what's happening and conveying in a different medium to younger people and to everybody about what's happening in Catalonia. So it's something in action. It's not just an entertainment feature to record a snapshot of history.
Exactly, and in relation to the music end of it and the group that are touring around Europe, they will visit many other countries in Europe. So the idea that we'd hope that it would broaden the appeal across the continent,
Yeah, I was saying to you in a chat yesterday about will this go out on Netflix? Are you going to do it in the modern way of the distribution? But you were saying no, you're going to be a bit more traditional with it because of the nature of the type of film it is. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, I mean, for example, there's a film coming out shortly with Tom Hanks about Elvis, right? Now you can imagine if that was a musical, it would be the story of you imagine that on a stage. And you see people maybe dancing and singing to each other. It's more like an opera, not a musical. But this is about the performance. And there's no greater performance than Elvis. So the whole idea is that you're in a cinema and you're really experiencing Elvis's performance. And that's what's key. If you've seen A Star Is Born and Lady Gaga and the sound, the quality, so you can't get that unless it's in your big cinema. So the answer to your question is where our target is the cinema, but after that, obviously go to the media, the other mediums. But it has to be cinema. Okay.
Willie, in terms of cinema, are you as committed to the silver screen?
I'm a total addict. I love it.
Yeah. Frank, in terms of what impact you would like this to have, what feedback are you getting at the moment in relation to the idea of the film, and what impact do you hope it will have?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we tried to do early on, just when we were pitching it, really was to get the endorsement of some of the political parties here, and you can imagine there are certain parties in Dáil Éireann that would not support this. But
they would have ran away from you like a dog's fart.
Yeah, but we did. We got the backing of Sinn Féin, and Sinn Féin have a lot of connections with ANC in Catalonia. Now, obviously, you don't want the film going out with a badge of a political party because it could, it could damage it. But we do need to also explore the trade union movement. I'm involved in a film at the moment about the life of James Connolly, and we got huge involvement and huge investment from the trade unions, so that we really wanted to be a people's film.
Yeah, it sounds really exciting. Have you any time frames for completion of the film? When can an Irish audience, do you hope, get to see it? I think you were saying 2022, ideally.
2022 for the shoot, with the edit taking place in the autumn of 22, and for release just after Christmas. So it'll be January 23. And make sure to get your pinstripe suit out for the red carpet, Finbar.
Oh, please stop it now. I'll have my big red frock on me. And tell me, and I'll be getting it in the Simon community because I'll be as poor as ever back in 2023, I'm sure. Right, lads, I want to see the bloody film. I'm looking forward to you getting it together. As it advances and as it progresses, I'd be happy if you'd get in contact and let us know what's happening, and we'll keep our audience informed. We're going to hopefully play out the end of the show with the full song today that we were playing earlier. I just think it's a spine-tingling song. It's fantastic. And if that's the quality throughout the film, it has to be a winner. But in the meantime, lads, be safe and keep in contact and let us know what's happening.
Thank you very much for your support. We really appreciate it.
And thanks for coming on. And as I say, any news, keep in contact. And thanks for your time, lads.
Finbar, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, we're going to pass back over to Anna Kavanagh now for her regular section of news and views. Anna, are you there?
Yes, I am. You're very welcome to this week's news and views. The Gardaí have been very much in the headlines in recent weeks, and tonight I'm going to join up the dots and see if I can create a bigger picture of the direction that policing is heading in Ireland. And so we begin with the June bank holiday weekend in Dublin. The government had been talking for months about an outdoor summer, and on the Saturday of the June bank holiday weekend, the Garda Public Order Unit sealed off a number of streets in Dublin. So we're going to have a look now at a short video clip that went viral on social media depicting the Garda Public Order Unit acting in and around Grafton Street, Dawson Street on the Saturday of the June bank holiday weekend. So we're looking here now at the Garda Public Order Unit. Now, the Garda Commissioner and a number of senior ranking Gardaí appeared before the policing authority this afternoon, and the question was put to them if this type of policing was proportionate, and they said yes, that they were satisfied that it was and that it had been a planned operation. Questions were asked about a video of Gardaí emptying cans of beer and throwing them on the street on social media. Let's take a look at another video that went viral over the bank holiday weekend.
They're leaving them on the ground.
You have been looking at video footage there that was obviously taken from inside a cafe or restaurant in Dublin over the June bank holiday weekend, and it would appear that the Gardaí were confiscating drink and emptying the contents onto the ground and just throwing the cans away. Now, this next piece of video footage that we're going to look at was filmed along the quays in Dublin on Monday evening of the June bank holiday weekend at approximately 8:30 p.m. and we can see a massive Garda presence. what appears to be a huge police operation there along the quays in Dublin on the Monday evening of the June bank holiday weekend. And there was no planned protests, and there didn't appear to be very many people on the streets. So the question is, was that a proportionate operation? Daniel Lambert, Chief Operating Officer at Bohemian Football Club, tweeted the following Friday evening, the 11th of June, Gardaí have arrived to a lovely scene along the canal with people outdoors and distance. We're now closing the canal. Move on right away, they said. And RTE's Cathal McQuilla replied, saw this happening in the same place at the same time as Daniel. People sitting on the banks of the Royal Canal quietly chatting. The largest group was 5, but being told to leave. Those I saw weren't remotely drunk or disorderly. The Garda Siochana Powers Bill was published by Minister for Justice Heather Humphreys on Monday the 14th of June. A person who refuses to surrender a password for a mobile phone or other device to Gardaí will be committing a crime and could face up to 5 years in prison and a fine of up to €30,000 under the proposed new legislation. Conor Gallagher reported in the Irish Times, concerns have been raised by privacy advocates over the broad nature of the bill. Chairman of Digital Rights Ireland and UCD Associate Professor of Law, TJ McIntyre, said the powers were extraordinarily invasive and would allow Gardaí access to the entirety of someone's digital life, even while investigating minor crimes. He goes on to say, once Gardaí can access a phone or computer, this would provide access to email, bank and Google Drive accounts, as well as encrypted messaging services such as Signal, he said. That makes it much more invasive than traditional types of search warrants. Historically, search warrants are about particular places, but these type of warrants involve getting the entirety of someone's digital life in a way that is not connected to one place. Gardaí looking for evidence of one crime could bring additional charges if they discovered evidence of other crimes during digital searches, he said. The power to demand a password would automatically apply to every single crime where a search warrant can be issued, not just in serious crime investigations. The law would also permit superintendents to grant search warrants instead of a judge in, quotation marks, urgent circumstances, unquote. This reintroduces the practice of self-service warrants, which was effectively discontinued by the Supreme Court several years ago, Mr. McIntyre said. The law would require the Garda Commissioner to draw up a code of practice to determine the use of data obtained during a search, a safeguard Mr. McIntyre described as weak sauce. In an opinion piece in the Irish Times, the former Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Senator Michael McDowell, also voiced his concerns about the proposed legislation. And moving on, last Thursday, the Connacht Tribune reported that the Gardaí in Galway City were warning restaurateurs and publicans that it was illegal to serve alcohol in the newly created outdoor spaces. The government had called for an outdoor summer, and the local authority granted planning permission to publicans and restaurateurs to provide outdoor seating. And a number of streets around the country were pedestrianised. Last Monday morning, speaking from County Monaghan, Acting Minister for Justice Heather Humphreys said she had spoken to the Garda Commissioner, Mr. Harris, about the matter, and he had assured her that the guards will apply discretion. So we look now at Deputy Peadar Tobin, Aontú leader, speaking about this issue in the Dáil on Tuesday last.
The government's mismanagement of the hospitality sector has been a car crash. The collateral damage has been many pubs and restaurants, some of whom have been closed now for 420 days. No other country in the rest of Europe has closed hospitality for so long. And in the research that I've done today, I can find no other European country where indoor dining in restaurants is closed. Denmark and Finland had roughly the same level of mortality as the state, roughly the same level of vaccinations. They managed to open up their indoor dining in April and in May. Here in Ireland, hotels have been allowed to open up their indoor dining since the start of June, and the Taoiseach Leo Varadkar himself says that there is no science behind the decision to discriminate between hotels, restaurants and pubs. There has been incredible confusion on our streets over the last while. The government paid hundreds of thousands of euros in marketing to encourage people onto our streets, while at the same time we saw Gardaí baton charge young people off those streets. And for weeks, the governments have allowed publicans to serve takeaway pints to thousands of people milling around our streets, but have banned the sale of pints to people sitting safely at those publicans' tables outside of those pubs. And the government, in the latest version, has made millions of euros of grant aid available to pubs and restaurants to sell food and drink in areas where the sale of drink is illegal by bylaws. An absolutely incredible situation. Hospitality, tourism and aviation have been calling for the introduction of rapid antigen testing since its approval by the EU last December. But the government doesn't like the word rapid and can't make a decision. We have the situation where the Minister for Making Things Up as you go along has concocted a solution for the confusion with regards the sale of alcohol and food on streets where it's actually banned. And she has called the Gardaí to close their eyes and say nothing. An incredible situation. Restaurants and pubs in many parts of the country will now operate at the pleasure of local Gardaí, and discretion may mean that some restaurants and pubs can function and others can't. And Garda representatives themselves said when things go wrong, the blame will be put on our members for having to defend their actions. They've said that they're worried that the Gardaí will be scapegoated for impossible decisions that will have to be made. Taoiseach, I've never seen a government to tie themselves up in knots so much in confusion. This government has been a fiasco factory when it's come to hospitality. Will you now legislate so that pubs and restaurants and hotels can operate safely under the same science and the same regulations?
Last Monday afternoon, Garda Commissioner Drew Harris instructed senior officers that discretion should be used to police pubs and restaurants serving customers in temporary outdoor seating areas. And therein lies the problem, the word discretion. Recent reports from the Policing Authority of Ireland on the enforcement of COVID regulations has thrown up some very interesting insights into the policing of these regulations. And it has been found that more than half of all of the enforcement notices were actually issued to young men under the age of 35. And 2 of the 17 Garda divisions in Dublin, namely Blanchardstown and Ballymun, account for more than half of all of the enforcement of COVID regulations. So we're stepping into very, very dangerous territory when it comes to talking about Garda discretion. Moving on now, John Mooney reported in the Sunday Times on the 12th of June that thousands of distressing 999 calls from victims of domestic violence pleading for help were ignored by Gardaí in order to avoid having to respond to the incidences. Now, this was a follow-up to an expose by John Mooney in the Sunday Times in October 2020. It was reported in the media that among the victims whose calls for help failed to elicit any Garda response were vulnerable children, battered women, travellers and migrants. Now, as I've already said, Drew Harris and a number of senior Gardaí appeared before the Policing Authority this afternoon. And ahead of this afternoon's meeting, which was held via Zoom, the head of the Policing Authority, Bob Collins, expressed deep satisfaction and significant concern with the responses that they had received from An Garda Siochana in relation to the cancellation of these 999 emergency calls. Bob Collins described as unsatisfactory the level of engagement on the matter and accused Senior Gardaí of not providing available information to the authority. According to the minutes of the authority's private meeting with Mr Harris and his senior team last month, it has emerged that the Gardaí knew of the problem last autumn, but did not inform the policing authority until April. Drew Harris appeared before the policing authority, as I said this afternoon, to face these questions. And we're going to take a look now at, first of all, the opening remarks made by the chairman of the policing authority, Bob Collins.
And I think it's important to make those points very clearly. The first intimation the authority had that there was a problem in relation to 999 calls was in December of last year, when we were advised that there was an issue. The impression that we got was that it was mainly technical in nature. And what prompted it was the advice to us was that there was likely to be a media report to this effect. We subsequently were written to, and that was the essence and the substance of the approach that was taken to us at the time. We discussed it at the December meeting, the authority. It was indicated that it would be at least 3 months before there would be any detail, and we tabled it for discussion at the March meeting, the authority. The Minister asked the authority to report regularly to her on this issue and on our oversight of it, and I wrote to the Minister in February. At the March meeting of the authority, which was, we had the first intimation that there may be an issue of substance and seriousness in this. And that was an inference we drew from an observation that was made at that meeting. We now know that the seriousness and the substance about which we began to have an apprehension in March had been widely understood within the organisation from October. And it has been a source of significant concern and, not to put a tooth in it, fairly intense frustration that it has been very difficult, that no approach was made to us in that regard, no unveiling of that information was done, and that it has been difficult until very recently to get substantive and comprehensive information in relation to what was happening.
You have been watching the chairman of the Policing Authority of Ireland, Bob Collins, speaking this evening at the meeting that was held via Zoom with the Garda Commissioner, Drew Harris, and a number of senior Gardaí. We're going to take a look now at the Commissioner's opening remarks to the meeting.
Thank you very much, Chair. Obviously, this is regarded and is a very serious situation for An Garda Siochana. Our review into the calls of service is ongoing, so we have not got the conclusive or final figures. But it is right to say that in some instances, An Garda Siochana did not provide the standard of service to victims, particularly of domestic abuse, that is required by our policies and our procedures. And those policies and procedures are put in place as domestic abuse is often a crime which involves episodes and instances which which can carry on throughout a relationship. It is very rarely an individual instance, and therefore then we have particular processes which give additional protections. We are still, as I've said, working through this situation in terms of visiting all of these calls, those that have been marked within and cleared as being cancelled, and we're working through those now at a divisional level. That work is carrying on, but I think the thing which alarms me and which alarms my colleagues is that the full level of support as set out, as I said, in our policies, at times was not provided. Who may have been impacted by this, we're going to take whatever action is necessary in terms of support that we put in place Can we follow through on prosecutions, referrals to other agencies such as TUSLA or other NGOs that may provide support? And as we carry on this, we'll obviously keep yourselves and the Policing Authority, but also Minister for Justice updated on our progress. But I just want to assure victims of domestic abuse that An Garda Siochana is here for you, and also please report to us if you're a victim of domestic abuse.
The Garda Commissioner then went on to give assurances that this matter is going to be fully investigated and that he will keep the Minister and the Policing Authority updated and fully briefed on their findings. I want to thank you very much for watching, and can I just make a little plea to you? Can you please share this video to get the news out to a much wider audience? And as always, I like to leave you with a question to ponder over the next couple of days. Having joined up the dots and seen the bigger picture of how the Gardaí were presented in mainstream media and on social media in recent weeks, could it be said that Drew Harris is taking policing in Ireland in a new direction since he took up the position of Garda Commissioner?
A good question, Anna. To be honest with you, having listened to his comments there, again, there was damage limitation throughout his comments. First of all, when this story broke last month, first time I heard about it, they were talking about tens of thousands, if not scores of thousands of cancelled calls. I can see that the Commissioner here is trying to funnel our vision to specifically look at domestic violence so that he can then say, but you know, this is so ongoing, it never results in charges, this is relationship problems. So the Gardaí knew these people and knew nothing would come out of going out to the house. That's basically what they're doing here. There was a lot more crimes than just domestic violence crimes. There was people being robbed, people being assaulted. We don't know whether people were murdered because An Garda Siochana decided to cancel their emergency calls. So I think the answer to your question, Anna, is that it's the same old, just a slightly different accent, but it's just the same old when it comes to An Garda Siochana. Worse, in fact, the idea that tens, if not scores of thousands of emergency calls were cancelled. We ran over time again today, folks, as usual, but you know, that's what happens when you have interesting guests and you want to convey an authentic presentation of what's happening in the world and in Ireland today. I want to thank our guests, Rory Murray as usual, Willie, Hughes and Frank Allen, in terms of the musical film The Road to Barcelona, which we hope we'll be seeing in cinemas soon enough. We're going to play out with the theme song from that movie now, Our Dream Come True. I've just got an email confirmation from Joseph Costa, the Professor of Law and Ethics, and also ex-Vice President of Catalonia, who will be on the show next week to give us an in-depth analysis of exactly what's happening with the Catalan movement right now. And as well as that, we're going to probably have hopefully another guest on and look at our news that you won't see on TV, etc. Join us next week, 9 p.m. Thursday, for Double Down on the Irish Inquiry. We really appreciate you. I hope you appreciate us as much, and share this show out where you can and tag your friends. Thanks for your time. Have a safe week. Talk to you next week, and enjoy this song, Our Dreams Come True.
Can anyone tell? Can the crystal ball see our beautiful dream? Flying on wings, we must hold on to hope and weather every storm. If this we can do, our dream may soon come true. The wheel of life spins on, each Each turn is always new. We never